Hello ladies and gents, in the previous video we implemented sorting and grouping for our list, and in this one we will implement filtering and paging. So let's start and copy this sort dialog and rename it to filter dialog. And let's adjust it. This will be now on confirm filter. And we will use filter items aggregation this time. And our items will look a little bit different because we will use view settings filter item. And it will have a key. First one, let's use category, and also a text attribute. And we will use i18n file. And we will have one more, which is price, because we also want to be able to filter by price. And as for the filter items themselves, they will have their items aggregations. And inside we will have some view settings item controls. And as before, these can be self-closing, and they will have a key and a text attribute. Now we have three categories. First one is foods, then we have beverages, and lastly electronics. I will not create i18n entries for these since this is just easier. And as for the keys, I will include everything here we need for a filter object. And the first thing we need is the property name that we would like to filter by. In this case, it's the category field. Then I will put in 2 underscores. Then we need a filter operator. For the category, we will use EQ, which stands for equals. And then the category key for the food category is 0. Now let me copy this for the other two. And for beverages, it's 1, electronics, it's 2. And let me also copy these items for the price. And here we will do something a little different. For the first one, we will say less than 10 euros. Then we will say between 10 euros and 50 euros. And lastly, more than 50 euros. And here our field name is price. And we cannot use EQ this time. For less than, we will use LT, and then we say 10. For between, we have BT, and we want 10, and we need a second value here, so double underscore and 50. And for greater than, we have GT and 50 here. Now let's save and go back to our app controller. Actually to our app view first, so we can add a new button in our list header. Let's duplicate this one, and we will use the filter icon for this, and this should be on filter button pressed. And now let's go to our controller and find the handler for sort button press, this one, and duplicate this. Load and display the filter dialog, and let's rename all these to filter. Let's save and see what we have. We have our new filter button, and when we click, we see 2 items, category and price. And if we go inside the category, we have our 3 categories, and for the price, we have the 3 items that we just created. And of course there is no logic behind it, so it's not working. So let's go ahead and also implement the logic as well. And in here we named the confirm event handler as on confirm filter. So let's go ahead and create that as well here at the bottom. We will again need the event object. And again, the first thing we will do is to get filter items from the event object. So we say const a filter items actually equals event.get parameter, and the parameter name is filter items, as you could have guessed. And first let's create an empty array. So we say create filters array according to the selected items. First initialize it as an empty array, so a filter equals empty array, and then we have a filter items. Then we can loop over those with for each, for example. Let's call it an item for a single item. And now first I will use the spread operator to get each of these values, and let's name them. The first one will be the path of our property. Second one will be the operator, also a string, so let's call it as operator. And then we have our first value, and for the between operator we have the second value, so let's call them sValue1 and sValue2. And we can just say here item dot get key, and then we can say split, and remember we use double underscores, and we can push a new filter object to our a filter array here now. So let's say a filter dot push. We will say new filter, which we also need to import. Let's go back up. After the sorter, it's again in the model library, so I add it here. And we basically pass in everything we deconstructed here, so I will just copy all four here. Now for the ones that we don't have a second value, this will be undefined, but it won't matter. We can just use it like this, and since we have our filters ready now, we can just filter our list binding. Filter list binding, this dot get view. Actually, let's just copy it from here. And then we just say dot filter, and we pass in our filters array. Now let's save and see if it works. Let's try to filter by category electronics, for example. We save, not working. Let's check our console. A filter items not defined. Okay, we used a filter item, so let me rename this. We try again. Category electronics, okay, and we only have the electronics. Let's try to add also beverages. Now we also have those, and let's add a price, for example. We have some more than 10, so let's say less than 10, so we should have these two only, and indeed we do. And if we remove all the filters with the reset button and click OK, we have our whole list again. Now one more thing we can do, and we should do, is to add some kind of information to let the user know that the list is filtered in a filtered state if there is any active filters. And for that we will use another aggregation of our list here. Instead of toolbar, we will also have an info toolbar, and in here we will simply create another toolbar, and we will give it an ID because we will have to access it from our controller. Let's call it ID filter info toolbar, and in here we will simply have a text. Let's also give it an ID filter text, self-closing, and then we go back to our event handler for the confirm filter event, And here we have another event parameter which is named filter string. So let's also save it as filter string equals our event.get parameter, and the parameter name is filter string. And after list binding here, let's say show info header if there are any filters, and we say this dot get view dot by id. First, let's set this toolbar visible to false by default, because by default there will be no filters anyway. And then we will access this with its ID, the toolbar, and then we say set visible, and it will depend if we actually have any filters here. So we can use a filter array here. If the length of the filter array is truthy, so greater than 0, we will set it to true, so it will be visible, else false. And next we should set this text here, and that's why we got this filter string attribute event object. And let's just paste it here. This time we will use set text, and the ID of our text control is this one. Let's save and see what it looks like. There is no info toolbar. If we filter by food, let's say, now we get this nice string here, filtered by category, which is food. Let's add beverages and also price, more than 50. There is no such product, so let's maybe change the category to electronics. And we only have a wireless mouse, and again we can see a nice explanation of our filter. Now let's go back and also implement paging, which will be very brief and easy, because it's managed automatically basically by the list control itself. So let's find our list control, and to enable paging we simply set the growing attribute of our list to true, and then we have a growing threshold which is 20 by default, but we don't have 20 items, so I will set it to 3 for now. There is a typo here, threshold, okay. And when we save and check our app, we see only 3 items since we set the threshold to 3, and we can display more when we click on this. And like I said, this is default by 20, but let's make it 5. Then we get 5 initially, and let's set it back to the default value 20. Now that's it for this video, and hope to see you in the next one, where we will implement filtering and sorting in XML views directly.